I'm going to do a quick rundown of what it's like being an American coming to Russia in the fall of 2023. Um, this is going to be another stream of consciousness rant, so I don't have any pre-prepared points. Uh, thing to remember is that in Russia in general, things can change very, very quickly. And America is considered an unfriendly nation by the Russian government, and probably not without reason. Um, the I was frankly nervous about coming here. I was very concerned about possible negative repercussions I or my family might face. There are real dangers to take into account, and there still could be real dangers we face ahead. Um, First of all, the U.S. State Department lists Russia in its most severe sort of travel advisory. It's ranked down at the very bottom, along with North Korea and Iran and Syria and Somalia and places like that, war zones. War zones, totalitarian regimes, theocracies, whatnot. In that group, I would say Russia is by far the least extreme and the least dangerous, I think. You know, but that's just my perception. I certainly don't want to underplay any potential risk you may have if you decide to come here. But we have not had any problems. Before we came, I spent several days combing through my social media, my documents on my phone, etc., deleting things, unsubscribing to different things that may be construed as political. I am a fairly political person. If you ask what my politics are, I'd probably disagree with you. I think the Russians would claim I'm anti-Russian. The Ukrainians would claim I'm anti-Ukrainian. The American government probably wouldn't like my ideas either. I tend to think for myself. I don't say that arrogantly. It's just I don't really see any side or any party that I tend to have a high opinion of. The but if you have any kind of political statements or subscriptions to YouTube channels, for example, where they discuss politics as it pertains to Russia and Ukraine, I would unsubscribe from those. If you have donated any money to any charities that give money to the armed forces of Ukraine, I would definitely try to conceal that. The but people have. It's not uncommon, apparently, that border guards will demand to check your electronic devices, your computers, your smartphones, etc., for anything that may be construed as spreading misinformation about the Russian military or discrediting the Russian military or being sympathetic to opposition politicians or supporting Ukraine or sanctions or anything like that. All of that could be problematic. None of it, I don't think, is technically illegal, at least not for people that are not Russian citizens. But you probably don't want to explain all that to the FSB or the MDD. Now, surrendering it's actually illegal for them to demand to see your electronic devices. Legally in the Russian Federation, you have every right to refuse. But they tend to be rather persuasive if they really want to check things like that, and they don't tend to respond well, from what I've heard, to people who want to say, "I assert my rights." You know, and they can trump up charges against you. And then instead of handing your phone over and having a quick look down in the airport, you may find yourself in a courtroom and have it subpoenaed, in which case they can look at everything, and they will. So use your best discretion. As for us, we had no problems whatsoever. While I have read in a Medusa article, which is it's a Russian independent newspaper based out of Latvia that's been deemed an undesirable organization here in the Russian Federation. They posted an article just a few days before we left about how to return to Russia. It was aimed mainly at people who were recent expatriates, but it has useful information for people who are either old expatriates or people like myself who have never actually lived here. They said in that article that according to defense attorneys, it seems like roughly one person on every flight is selected for interrogation. From what I've heard, these interrogations can be friendly, they can be very low-key in nature, or they can be a little bit more intense. I wouldn't expect waterboarding or anything like that. It's still not like we're going to Guantanamo Bay. But unless you get arrested. They can be, people can feel a lot of pressure, is what I've heard. But in our case, I don't think a single person was selected for interrogation. We were the absolute last people to go through passport control, and our flight was a red-eye flight. When we landed, passport control for foreigners had already closed down, so we all had to go through the passport control for Russian Federation citizens. I don't think that border guard even necessarily spoke English. He asked me if I spoke Russian. I told him, немного, not a lot. And he just asked for my identification and that of my daughters, and then he asked for me and my daughter, he asked me to sign immigration cards for the three of us. Immigration cards are not something new in Russia. They've had those for about as long as Russia as a federation has existed, as far as I'm aware. They certainly had them in my two previous trips. But you're not allowed to bring more than $10,000 cash or 10,000 euros in property. I don't know why there's a difference, but that's how that's how it's listed. Going from memory, anyway. And money is a big problem here. If you're watching this video, you probably already know that American or Western Visa, MasterCard, American Express, etc. does not work here. They all abandoned the Russian economy after the start of the hostilities, and they have not returned. Additionally, Russian banks have been sanctioned and cut off from the SWIFT system, so transferring money, wire-to-wire, bank-to-bank transfer is difficult or impossible. Cryptocurrency is unreliable. Binance, while we were over here, announced that they were abandoning the Russian market. From what I can tell, they've not. That's going to take some time. But you know, don't rely on things like that. That's a bottleneck. We carried a fistful of dollars and a few dollars more. We changed all over here. Interestingly, or irritatingly perhaps, some of the bills that we were issued by our bank had just little defects like red smudges on the bottom, or where someone had dribbled some ink or something on it. Any kind of defect. We've not been able to exchange that here. We have, $150, $200 that we simply cannot change into rubly because we can't find anyone that will take it. My daughter's crying downstairs. My wife's watching her. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. If all this makes it sound like this is some kind of a hellscape, and that's certainly how, the impression you get from the media, or even stereotypes before the war, really. It's not. The atmosphere here does seem a bit different than it did in my two previous trips. People seemed a little bit more talkative. They seemed a little bit more assertive. They seemed a little bit happier. Now, you can sort of sense a little bit of a tension in the air. People don't talk a whole lot, at least not where others can hear them when you're out and about. But aside from that, I haven't had any issues. I quite like it here. It's I'm sure that would make Ukrainians angry to hear. We do have Ukrainian friends, and we've also lost some Ukrainian friends over the years. They tend to be extremely angry at Russians as a whole, and perhaps understandable, but other countries have done worse and have come back from it. Think of Germany, think of Japan. For that matter, think of our own country, the United States. We've done some pretty messed up things in the past as well. But people here, I rather like them. I feel I fit in fairly well amongst them. I'm not moving here, at least not at this point. But it's a country of 145 million. There will be many bad people. There will be many good people. Don't judge the many because of the actions of the few. I guess I'll leave it at that. Now, one addendum that I would like to make. First of all, on a lighter note, when I was in line at a carry-out place, they heard me, some 14, 15-year-old kid overheard me speaking in Russian. And as much as I would like to think I have a good accent, I do not. So he asked, in English, "Are you from France?" And I said, "Yeah, из Америки. I'm from America." And he says, "Oh, cool." And I said, in English, I said, "Your English is better than my Russian, I think, by the way." And he said, "Oh, thank you." So that was kind of neat. Another thing, on a more important note, water. Voda. The quality of water here out of the tap is untrustworthy. I have some experience in the production of water, but I cannot vouch one way or another the quality or lack thereof of the water that comes out of their water treatment plants. I have seen a water treatment plant here in Mitishi. It is quite old. It doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but the water coming out of the treatment plant is only one half of the equation. There's also all that pipeline and infrastructure in between the effluent of the plant and the tap. The quality of the pipes is probably variable. I've not done any testing on the water, so I don't know whether it's alkaline, whether it's low pH. I don't know whether there's what kind of chlorine residual they're having, or even if they're using chlorine, what I'm assuming they're using chlorine gas as disinfectant, but there are other options as well. I don't know any of that. I do know that the infrastructure here in general does not tend to get a good reputation. And the Russians themselves do not tend to trust the water here. I remember when my wife first moved to America, she thought it was disgusting that I drank tap water. It's like drinking out of a fire hose or something in her mind. So we tend to drink bottled water. Sophia's parents get these big 9-liter jugs. They just buy them in bulk, and we've tried some of their bottled water. This Shishkin Les, that means Shishkin Forest. It's pretty good and it's cheap. This 1 liter I think cost about 40 rubley, about 40 cents. This Lake Baikal 430 meter. This is kind of interesting. This is sort of Russia's take on the Tahiti water. Tastes quite good. It does, at least if their marketing is correct, it does come from Lake Baikal, which is one of the prides of the Russian Federation. It's the deepest lake in the world, and also supposedly the cleanest water of any lake in the world. Comes from a depth of 430 meters. It's pretty, but that's about it. If you decide to come here, have fun. I certainly did. So, all right.